Before we begin, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Amazon Music for partnering with me on this episode of Chasing Creativity, but more on this later. Let's get right into today's episode. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Chasing Creativity. This is Kiran Manral. Today my guest is Sonia Gehlot, founder and principal architect of Architecture and Beyond. I'm so happy to have you on the show, Sonia.
Thank you, Kiran. It's been a pleasure meeting you earlier when we met in Jaipur at Literary Festival and now again. So thank you for having me.
I've been seeing your work on Instagram and really admiring the colors, the brightness, the synergy you bring into your work. And I thought I must have you on the show. So tell me, Sonia, you grew up in Delhi. You come from Rajasthan, from Jaipur. What kind of a childhood did you have, and what were the creative influences in your childhood?
So childhood for us, Delhi, of course, was because my parents that time were in Delhi stationed, and it was a very simple living. We didn't have too much to really do. It was school and back and everything. But my mom was always very creative. She would always be either creating something in the kitchen or on a canvas. So, I always saw her doing something. And when we would go back, so my maternal house is in Jaipur and my entire paternal house in Jodhpur. So every summer break would be with cousins and friends around and all of them. And just because those were smaller cities, we had so many things to do. We would go for like these creative classes or music or, so I just kind of did everything that came my way during growing up years during a summer break. I mean, my heart is still in Rajasthan. I live in Bombay, but I'm still there. I think mentally I'm always there.
I don't blame you. It's a beautiful place. It's a beautiful.
And influences, I think it's just, I think you cannot really pinpoint, but I've seen so much of Rajasthan and how it's evolved now over the years, and sensibility kind of settles in with you over the years. You see different, not only Rajasthan, but you've traveled across and you've seen so much now that you now try to find your own balance, where you find peace, where you find your creative energy flowing out. So, yeah.
It's a choice of a profession that would have been considered unusual back then.
Absolutely, yes.
I mean, as far as I know, until my generation, maybe a generation after me, it was always, engineering, doctor.
Yes.
Get into those fixed fields, and that was it. So how did architecture and interior design happen to you? How did it happen?
It was a difficult one because convincing my own dad, I would say. Mom, of course, was an easy breeze because she always was a creative person. But my dad would always wonder, what are you going to do in architecture? That's not happening. Why would you not do a law, a journalism degree and just stay back with us in Delhi? Why do you want to go somewhere else? And I was so adamant that I wanted to get into creative field that finally he had to give in. And he's like, all right, if that's what you want, you crack the exam. If you do it, yes, I will not stop you. So that's what happened.
Were you the child who would, sit down and rearrange the furniture in the house and, sort of draw stuff on the walls? And
yes, absolutely. I was one of those kids. And also if something wasn't kept right, I would always keep moving and shifting and keeping things here and there. And I'd be like one of those fussy ones. Yes.
You know what happens with architecture and interior design? I'm like a failed interior designer, let me confess. So I love to draw and I used to love to do these things. I mean, I've done horrible experiments in the home when I was a kid. But when I joined Rahija College of Architecture, I chickened out within a month because we needed maths. We needed to draw very specific things. And it is hard. It is tough. So when you finally got into the training, the hardcore training of it, there is that love for the
subject, but at the same time,
the hardcoreness. Did that come as a dissonance for you by any chance, or did you love that as well?
No, it was very difficult. Actually, it is not an easy course by any means.
It isn't.
It's a 5 years, very rigorous course. And, I still remember when I did architecture from Pune, and when my parents dropped me and they came back, they were obviously hoping that I'll come back to Delhi and not go back ever. But however, I stuck around for like a month, and there was a summer break that came up, and I said, okay, I just want to go see my parents. And obviously you're homesick. So I go back. They're like, okay, so now you're here for good. I say, no, I am going back. Like, why do you want to do it? It's like such a hard call. I said, yes, whatever it is. But now that I've decided that I want to go for it, I would like to give it a full shot, and then we'll see. And to my surprise, yes, it was a difficult course, but I think I really enjoyed what I did during my architecture days, made good friends. And, we had like a whole synergy of students and teachers combined. So it was good fun. Like overall experience, I would say it was good, but it was very, very difficult. Like we would be 3 a.m. kids every day and 7 a.m. at college. It wasn't easy.
I can imagine. 3 a.m. kids and 7 a.m. You barely got 4 hours of sleep.
Yes.
But after you finished your architecture course, you got out into the big bad world and you had to start interning somewhere. So what was that journey like?
Actually, that was the best part of my life when I look back, was that when I finished architecture and I did join another firm before that, but Thalati Pantki was where I started my real career from. And I was very, very fortunate to work directly with Mr. Thalati. And the story, if Kiran, you will have some time to spare, I would like to share.
Of course.
So I go to Mr. Thalati and he takes my interview, and I topped my college with my thesis and everything. So he kind of browsed through everything. He's like, yeah, great. Okay, tomorrow 9:30, come to the office. I said, sir, I don't want to do architecture. I like to pursue interiors. He's like, oh, he thought for a moment and he said, all right, fine. And he put me with Firoza Khavarana, who was heading interior department there then. So I said, sure. So I said hellos and we said, okay, tomorrow we start. I barely worked with her for 1.5 days. Mr. Thalati comes dashing into that interior department. He's like, Sonia, we have to go out for lunch. I was like, all right, let's go. And I go for that lunch ride from the office to Taj and back. He convinced me I'm wasting my life doing interiors. I have to join him in the architecture department. And there I was moved to architecture department. But it was such a joyride. I got to learn so much and I respect him. And I think I owe my entire career to him, because he taught me from detailing to the smallest of the details to the largest, So it's like now when I work and I design every day, I thank him for what he taught me, because it wasn't just about just holding a pen and sketching. It was about proportion, scale, looking at the eyes, looking at the details, looking at what scale are you designing and what will people react to those designs. So there was a lot to learn from him, and which is what I now feel that when I design, that automatically kind of sets in, the thought process sets in where it says, okay, this is how you should be doing. So he was my mentor, guide, everything. And until date, I, really have great rapport with him. So whenever I'm down and out, I'll go to him and say, now what do I do?
That's so wonderful.
Yes.
That's so wonderful.
He's such a humble and such a lovely person to be. And I'm so glad that I got him as my mentor.
I'm so glad you did too, because then we would get to see all your work and you wouldn't be in interior design, you think?
So now, currently, I do both. I do architecture as well as interiors. And Kiran, another thing I must share, that when I started my career again, so I took a long sabbatical. I worked with Mr. Thalati for a long while, and then I had 2 kids. And I took a terribly long sabbatical. When I say terribly long, it was 12 years long. And finally, when I got back into profession, I was like, it is now or never. So I better start. So when I started my own career, I realized people who came to me, when they see a woman, they feel, oh, she will be good at doing interiors. But nobody considers you as an architect, as a serious architect.
Why do you think this happens? Sorry for interrupting.
I don't know. Maybe the soft skills women have better.
Mm-hmm.
And to start by yourself, usual firms, if you currently see whoever is working, they're mostly husband-wife duos.
Okay.
And because the husband's always the front face, architecture work, I feel, comes more easy to them. I found it very hard to get architectural work in my beginning years. Very hard. And although, as Mr. Thalati rightly said, that I would be wasting my life if I did interiors, because I now do enjoy architecture far more. So it was a struggle, but I said, now whatever it is, let's just go one step at a time. Let's be just over there, just hanging there. And that's how I started doing interiors in the beginning. And interiors is all self-learning because I did only architecture with Mr. Talati. I didn't do interiors with him.
That's interesting.
But yeah.
This is when you founded your firm, Architecture and Beyond?
Yes.
When you came back?
That's right.
What made you decide to take the plunge and just found your firm rather than, perhaps work with somebody else? So,
Yeah, well, that was a choice as well. I mean, and as I said, I have such great rapport with the firm that they always said, please come back and we'll give you flexible hours and you can work when you like and all of that. But somehow deep down, I felt that in terms of even your own style and creativity, my style is very different from what Talati Pantki does.
As someone who's done both architecture and interior design, and now you say you enjoy architecture more because you've trained in it, but you've won awards in interior design. So obviously, you've won some of the most prestigious awards out there. So could you tell us a bit more about the Elle Decor and the Kohler Bowl Design Award
yes.
and the project that won you that award?
So that project is very dear to me. It's in Colaba. It's called the Healing Center, which is like a space where you have like a yoga center, meditation zone. Then you have a counselor, a healer, and other few amenities as well. And that space, when my client and a very dear friend again, when she took me to see that, it was like absolutely love it the first time. It was like one of those spaces where you could walk in and you say, okay, this space works for this kind of profession, like that kind of synergy was there. And it was like on the main road. So we needed to cut down the sound and everything. So, when you walk into that space now, it's like a buzzy street of Colaba and suddenly you're in this quiet zone and you're able to do meditation, yoga, and get to all those, self-healing kind of processes. And so when we started designing that space, her brief was very simple. She said, all I'm looking for is something which is calm and serene. And this is the space and this is you. Like, I don't know what you want to do with the space, and she trusted me blindly. I thought, she gave me too much of free hand, I think.
Which is ideal.
Yes, it was absolutely ideal.
And it's a lovely space. I've seen pictures of it and it's vibrant and yet calm.
Yes.
So there's that wonderful paradox about that place. Would you say there's a signature Sonia Gehlot style?
Yeah, I was just coming to that, I think that when you talk about that influence from Rajasthan, it's the colors.
Yes.
Okay. Even how much ever, sometimes people tell me, okay, can you design neutral for me? I was like, yes, I can design neutral, but there will be some color, Like for me, I'm not a complete minimalist, but at the same time, I'm not a clutter kind of a person. So there is that one balance which I try to strike between the two, which, and a lot of times I feel that color does that for me. Like I really enjoy using colors in my spaces. Although that color comes hard, like when you're designing and when you're thinking, they're like, should I do this? No, not this. Okay, shall I do that? No. So it'll take me like 4 or 5 rounds to finally picture what I really want. But once I'm set, then I know that this is what will look good. So yeah.
When we speak of color, Sonia, for something like fashion, the trend comes and goes. You have a Pantone color of the year, and that's the color. A Valentino will come out with a pink and whatever. It's like everywhere for a year or so. Then it's done with. But when you're designing a space, you need that space to be trendy for many years. Also, you need to be on trend or ahead of the trend. So how do you bridge this dichotomy when it comes to color specifically?
So for me, I feel it's about the client firstly. I always design for the human experience. I don't design with the perspective saying, oh, pink is in the fashion, I have to do pinks. No, that never works with me. I usually pick the personality and I understand them. And I also make a huge effort, not even little, I think a huge effort in understanding what will they really enjoy, and which takes me a while to get them to a design conclusion. Like when we are doing, there are a lot of ifs and buts and all of that. But I enjoy that process because I feel that when I've understood the client, when I'm giving them what they want, then whatever space it turns out to be, they will enjoy it for a long time. So for me, it's all about human experiences. I always focus on that first. So like your personality could be a personality where it's like you're more warm, you want more, a little bit more warmer tones, or even in personality, like I feel I can read them to understand what they would really enjoy.
That's lovely. That's a very underrated skill, because many people think they're a certain way, but they aren't. But if you can read it and you know what exactly they would prefer.
I can make that out. Yeah.
Brilliant.
It takes time to understand the client. It's not like, okay, I meet you today and you tell me do this space and tomorrow it'll be ready. No, it takes me many sessions to understand what they want. But eventually, when I have understood what they want, even if they don't agree to certain things, I will convince them to do it, and they will thank me for that later. And it has not happened once, but many times.
Oh, that's fabulous then.
Yeah,
that's fabulous. And what about your architecture projects? Is there something within those that you feel is a signature Sonia Gehlot style?
Architecture projects also are there, but they are not as many. As I said that, I've always struggled to get more architecture projects than interior. Interior comes easy to me now. I don't know, even now. But having said that, I'm doing some project in Kunur, which we've done complete architecture for it. And now we have moved towards doing interiors. And when you talk about signature style, I would again say that, it's about the balance that kind of, which kind of defines me. When you see my projects, they are like more, they're not like boxes, you know what I'm saying? Like they will have like some human touch to them. They're not like cold boxes, one on top of the other. Like I don't think I can design like that. I have those soft curves, soft methods of bringing in that little bit of more element of human scale, human style, human design. I feel that connects you to that space. And I always have that element, and I always bring in something which I feel that client eventually will enjoy, because what happens when you're doing architecture, not everybody kind of understands what you are intending to do. How many soever we show them views or whatever, but that space that I have thought in my mind, it's only with me, And then when it comes about, that's when the clients start appreciating that, okay, this is what you were saying and it looks lovely. Yeah.
That's so nice. Do you have any favorite materials you like to work with, or do you decide on a material and incorporate it in the project, or does the project demand it and you incorporate the material? How does it work for you?
Yeah, it's always the latter. It's the project which demands it. Always the latter, in the sense like you also like the place that you're designing for, the climate, the temperature. Then again, as I said, that I'm very the kind of person who is with human experiences. So I feel whatever the client, some people have that, they like the rough textures, and some people will be like, smoother finishes. So all that kind of starts building together along with your, the current scenario of that particular place in terms of temperature, in terms of weather or everything else, and plus what the client really desires. So it's always a mix. So I don't start with a particular material, let's say, but let the material come to me in terms of what is local, what is available, how best we can use that, how best we can tweak it.
That's lovely. It also brings me to another point that I've been meaning to ask you about: sustainability. It's huge right now, as it should be. Do you find yourself incorporating more and more of this in your work?
So for me, I feel sustainability, yes, we all must, go towards that. But however, in our field, I find it lesser and lesser being used. In my personal works, because sustainable materials come at a very high cost.
That's right.
So it's not that every client is able to afford that. But in the smallest and the best way, and I think that is one of my USBs, is also I feel that I'm always able to take, like, a lot of people will come and say, I have this furniture, but should we just discard it? I say, why would you just discard it? Let's just reinvent. So much of it that I'll end up reusing, I think that is my contribution towards a very minute contribution, but towards sustainability. I don't like to just get rid of things just because we can afford to buy new. No, but we can afford to do the same furniture in a different fashion as well, and which once you reinvent, it looks fabulous. So I always like to kind of rethink of what we can do, So I don't like to just throw away things.
That's very, very sensible. And that's something I hope all of us sort of, it's become such a disposable world, everything from clothes
Yeah.
to everything. So I'm so glad you're doing that with your projects. Also, staying on top of trends. How do you do that? Travel, of course, but any other things that you do to stay on top of what's happening in the design world?
Follow the best designers. Of course, travel is the biggest inspiration. You cannot do without that. But yes, I mean, even the designers around you, across you, and I also feel that trends do come and go. But what sticks with you is your own sensibility. So, although I may observe everyone else doing what they are doing, but it may not be necessary that I want to do what they are doing, So it depends on, I mean, I'm coming back to the same point. For me, it's about the human experience, which is my center point whenever I start designing, whenever I pick up my pen. It's always for that person, if it's a person specific place, or it's about that community. Like I'm designing a temple in Rajasthan. So you're trying to then imbibe, like, of course, besides the climate over there, that ventilation should come in, it has to be self-sustainable, blah, 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 all those things. But having said all of that, it also demands you to understand what kind of people are going to come there. How can you make them comfortable? Where will they open their shoes and sit down, or pray in the temple? Or do you want the temple to have vibes where you don't want people to leave? They can also enjoy meditation in the same space. So, so many factors which kind of multi factors that kind of get into your design thought process, and eventually it comes onto your paper. So that's a process which I thoroughly enjoy. I mean, that's actually the best process. And then the execution.
And that execution bit is really tough.
That's the toughest one, yes.
Which also brings me to another question that I've been meaning to ask you. And I ask this of all creative people. How do you see AI panning out? As a tool, as a threat, as an opportunity?
That's a good one. I mean, yes, it could be a threat too for architects like us. But at the same time, I feel obviously the human touch is missing, right? Like you could tell the AI and say, okay, this is the size of the room and this is what I'm looking, and this is Scandinavian style. Okay. And next to you in 3 seconds, you have a Scandinavian style room, ready in front of you. All you have to do is pick the dimensions and execute. It can't be too hard. But having said all of that, I feel that I'm hoping we will stay relevant. And I'm also hoping that while staying relevant, we will add to a lot of human aspect to our designs, which will stand out over AI.
Amen to that.
Yes, amen.
Is there any project you would say which has been a career-defining project for you?
Yes, a Kunur project which I did, I think about 5 years ago or something. Whoever has gone there, Kiran, without fail, you would have seen it on Instagram. Whoever has either visited or has been wanting to visit, they've always come back and said that, the serene and calm of that place. Of course, Kunur itself is beautiful, so that helps absolutely. But besides that, even the whole space that has come out, it's my favorite project. Like I would love to have a project like that for myself.
Oh, wonderful.
It's a wonderful combination of simple colors, simplicity plus colors plus elegance plus comfort. It's just like, I think, a perfect kind of a home.
Who are the designers, the architects who have been your influences, and any projects of theirs which have been seminal to you?
A couple of years ago, I was in Spain. I mean, not that I've had any opportunity to design any such things like that, but Gaudi. He's just unmatched. And when you look at those kind of brains and the era that they lived in, you're like, oh my God, we didn't have that kind of technology there back then. And look at the creativity that they have poured out. It's just, outstanding. I don't even have words. Like now, if we, with so much of tech also, we are not able to build like that. But the kind of work Gaudi has done, I think he's one of my very favorite architects. I think I absolutely love each and every project of his. And the way, and they're geniuses. I mean, I think they are just geniuses. The way they kind of put things together, it's just so organic, but yet works with everything. Not one window is same as the next one. In terms of its scale to design at that level, I think he's a star for me.
Absolutely. And
I think the next one I would say is Frank Lloyd Wright. I absolutely love his work as well. And so simple, but yet so powerful. And what I love about his work is the way he details out, but more than that, even the proportions. I think he has really mastered the art of, like, a simple planter, if you see, which he will design for the outside of the house. That also, if you think of its scale and proportion, is just perfect. Like, it's just hard to find architecture in today's day and time to find that perfect proportion where you say 1 centimeter more or 1 centimeter less, it will go off, I mean, he's just like a god in that sense. I think in terms of his proportions, I think I really like his style a lot.
When you come up with a project, Sonia, when you have a project in front of you, it's not always that the creative well is flowing. Sometimes you are blocked. And
many times.
How do you deal with it? It's a very strange situation to be in.
Yeah, but you kind of, I feel you just overcome it, because you kind of, so for me, when I'm sleeping in like people's homes and kitchens and their verandas and balconies everywhere, because I'm constantly thinking in my head what best one can really do. So what I would say is this: yes, when I go, like, for example, today I have a client meeting. I'm going to meet her for the first time, and we'll go through the space. It's not at the first go I can tell her, okay, do this, do that, do that. It takes me a while to kind of absorb that space, absorb the client's requirements, and then think through and eventually come out with a product. So it's a process and it takes time. I'm not one of those people who will be like fast at that. That I think is, I don't know if it's a drawback or that's how all people are. I have no idea, but I'm like that.
As long as it works for you, that's all that matters. Yeah. What are you working on now, Sonia?
I'm working on a very interesting project, which is, as I said, is going on in Kunur, which I'm really looking forward to finishing it soon. We've finished architecture, interiors are going on, so we are doing that. Temple project is, again, I'm hoping that it should be ready very soon. So there are a couple of things. Then there are, of course, offices and things like that, which are interesting in their own way. They're smaller projects, but they obviously just keep your game going. So I quite enjoyed those as well. And, when I say offices, they're not just run-of-the-mill offices. They're all, and to me, every space that I do, I feel, when you walk into a space, Kiran, you feel, oh, wow, this is so beautiful. But it's never a coincidence. It's always designed. It's always thought through. It's always orchestrated. That feeling that you get in that space, it's never just by chance. It always has something to do with the designer at the back. And unfortunately, many a times designers don't get their due. I hope they do now.
I hope so too. And of course, a designer is the custodian of the space in a way.
Yes.
And when a person entrusts the project to you, they are entrusting the space to you, and you have to bring out, whatever vibe that place will give.
Absolutely.
A positive vibe, a depressing vibe, whatever it is. Design
whatever,
space.
A happy, chilled out, or whatever you wish to create. Yes.
I do know that you taught for a while at Rachna Sansad and ISDI, and you also guest lecture there right now. But when you were teaching youngsters who are getting into the field, apart from the nitty-gritties of how to do your measurements and all those things, what are the things that you must convey to them about the process of designing?
So I actually only took design lectures. I didn't do the other bits at all, because I think my forte is only design, and which is what I like to. So when I was teaching at Rachna also, to all my students, I always used to tell them that, they come with a very closed mindset. Obviously, they haven't seen the world at that age. So they need to read, they need to expand. I think especially I feel the kids who come from not Bombay, but like outside Bombay, smaller towns. For them, Bombay itself is a big vision opener. And then to take steps forward. So it takes them time to kind of open up and to actually understand how design really works. But for me, design also doesn't work if it does not follow a function. It has to have that. So for them to understand is first that the function has to be right. And then design follows. It could be vice versa actually, but for the beginners, that's how it is. Like you have to have the functions right. Like you have to have circulation spaces right. For us now, when we design, it just comes to us automatically. But at that age, that's the first step. I always tell them that you look at the function first, how the circulation's happening, how a person's going to walk in, walk out of the place, how many number of people are occupying there, things like that. So just the basics, once they get right, then the design element, when they combine it, they automatically land up coming out with a great product. Similarly, while I was doing ISD, I did interior designing. They don't have architecture option over there. They only do interiors. But again, teaching over there, they had a very different method, in which I thought was, again, a very good eye-opener for me also. And I always enjoyed my interactions with students at both places, Rachna and ISD. But ISD had curriculum coming from the US. We had to study, and then we had to kind of train them, which helped us as well, because it was very out of the box thinking is what was required. And when you take those kind of lectures, you yourself learn a lot. And that's why I enjoyed that whole process far more.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. Sonia, thank you so much for your time. It was such a wonderful conversation. And if anyone's listening in and planning to get into interior design and architect, please look Sonia's work up on our Insta page. She does fabulous work. And I look forward to seeing your Kunnur project sometime, hopefully in the flesh.
Yes,
soon.
Very soon. Very soon.
And with that, it is a wrap on this episode of Chasing Creativity. This is Kiran Manral. I was chatting with Sonia Gehlot. Do catch us on Apple Podcasts, BingePod, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. See you next week. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Chasing Creativity. I wanted to say thank you to Amazon Music once again for partnering with me on this episode of this podcast.